So one of the workouts that I wrote, which is the maximum steady state lactate workout, where you're over threshold and just hanging out there for a good length of time. What do those look like for you?
That's interesting because I haven't been, you don't introduce that till later, right? So, which is perfect because you're not thinking about race pace, you're not thinking about pace, you don't have a relationship with pace before that is introduced. And I'll go back and look and I'll say, okay, my pushes have been, my anaerobic stuff is anywhere from 540 down to, 515, right in that range. And then over a couple months, now it's in the low fives, and then I'm sub 5 for a lot of these intervals. And, it's depending on how I'm having to hold it. If it's a 30-minute push, or if it's uphill, like these paces vary. But now for the first time I did that sustained work and paying attention to it and saying, what can I get away with? And, I of course, you always got a little hot, and I was like right around 5-minute pace. And for me to be in that range, it's like that's easily 15 to 20 seconds per mile faster than I would ever have even tried to do at this point. So
it would have felt like suicide.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Before, like if I'm going at 5-minute pace, it's like, yeah, I'm not quite that athlete, And now I just play with that kind of pace at this point. I can play with it. I can go there. And the other thing is, when I say play with it, it's like I can go into these paces, and it's my ability to recover from the paces that I've noticed a big difference in. So even in previous training, when I really hit the high-end paces, the recovery was, and I've been super fit for the marathon before, and I've done some crazy training, but I really needed the recoveries to be true recovery, whereas now I can go to these crazy places, and when I pull back, it doesn't really have to be the same amount of pullback, if that makes sense. So yes, I'm just recovering at a much higher level.
Well, so I'm, as you're speaking, I'm thinking in terms of how this would play out in your race.
Right.
So, for example, let's say that you what everybody tries to avoid doing, you went out kind of hot.
Yeah.
And let's say for the first hour, you were holding a pace that you would hope you'd be your negative split.
Yeah.
Right? But you're able to pull back from that, and then in a matter of a few minutes, you might gain back what you were starting to suffer.
Yeah.
And then be able to get back into that mode again.
Yes.
And so if you were to like undulate into your effort like this, the collective reduction in cost of time would improve. And that would be, for most people, just crazy trying to do something like that.
Yeah.
Because they assume they go out hot like that they're screwed for the rest of the race.
Yeah.
They never bounce back from that type of a move.
Right.
But because of the way the flows are set up,
yeah,
or the way you've orchestrated them based on your perception, is that you start to find that place where you've gathered yourself,
yeah,
and you can come back.
Yeah.
And nobody operates that way. They're not used to operating that way.
And with Boston specifically, because it's got, it has this mystique and this history to it where it's this fast race and you have to qualify for it. The entire field, from the elites all the way back, everyone is there to run fast. And that first mile is like a gun going off. People just fly out of the starting line. So it's going to be a fast mile no matter what. So you're guaranteed to be that. And then you've got these rolling hills. So it's like, it's all, my point is like, the race is perfectly built to destroy you if you're not ready for that contrast. And that's what's always scared me about it, because I've always trained to get faster at a steady output of effort. I've never really trained to be like just this really versatile, fast version of myself, right. So I feel way more confident. We still have 7 weeks to train, so that I'm stoked on that, because I already feel so good. So.
Well, I'd imagine a lot of people, they get fixated on either their pace or their heart rate or both.
Right.
So they start to notice that when they start dipping down a little bit, they start to rein themselves back.
Yeah.
Where in your case, you've developed a perception of effort that allows you to, oh wow, that's faster than I planned, but it feels okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to let that go.
Yeah.
Because I can.
Because I get away with it, and I know the cost that I'm paying. Yeah.
That's fun.
It's fun. It's become and even that, like the word fun is a great adjective for like my entire training plan, because this whole thing has become this game to me. Because I'm not married to even the watch. I'm not married to pace or distance. I know I'm going to spend on a given day, if I'm spending 2 hours out there, like that's really all I'm worried about. And I will I'll play the game of, okay, let me find a course that's going to have some weird hills in it, because that's going to be a test. Let me find it, and if I don't have hills, I'm going to take this segment of this course and I'm going to hammer that whole flat section. So like it all of a sudden it gamifies the experience of training, because I'm looking for ways to test as opposed to if you told me today's going to be 10 by 1K within a 20 miler. All of a sudden that structure itself seems like it's daunting. I'm like, oh frick, I gotta get 10 by 1K done, and it's like the relationship is completely shifted.
Well, it may not have any bearing.
Right.
It may not, and it's interesting because I just spoke to your wife about this a bit ago.
Yeah.
Probably not going to happen in the same sequence, but let me share with you that we talked about being effective, and effective should precede efficiency. And this was a big epiphany for me when I kind of got onto this idea. Not my idea, I'll be clear on this, but the concept of being effective before you concern yourself with being efficient. So think of this. Now, somebody writes for you, you got to do 4 or 5 1Ks by whatever, and the recovery being structured by a specific timeline.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that may be something beneficial for Joe, but not so much Bill.
Yeah.
Right? And so you being Bill, and you're trying to do this, and you've just wasted effort on something that actually was maybe contrary to what would be beneficial to you.
Yeah.
And so that would be ineffective.
Right.
So the first thing you want to make sure you're doing is everything you do in your training needs to be effective.
Yeah.
And that's going to lead to efficiency in your effectiveness, which is going to lead to economy.
Yeah.
So you could be really efficient at doing these interval workouts, and it has no bearing on how you're going to run that marathon.
Yep.
And you've spent all this training time maybe getting a false sense of bravado because you're doing so well with those intervals, and it just did not pay the bills when it came time to.
Yeah.
So.
And the looseness that you have built into this whole thing, because I think some people might look at it and say, well, I need more structure. It's like the structure is not there, but there's enough freedom in it to where it can be adapted to what you actually need on a given day.
That's an insecurity.
Yeah.
When you tell me that you need more structure, you're basically telling me you don't trust the process.
Right.
And you're basically telling me you don't trust yourself.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the first thing you got to do is you got to develop a relationship with yourself.
Right.
Right? You have to develop a relationship where you know you have the confidence to do the things that you need to do.
Yeah.
Not go out there in the darkness and just be scared shitless because you're not comfortable with what you're doing, because you never tested yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that this is critical. I'm glad you brought this up, because a lot of people have a really hard time paying attention to what their body's telling them. Yeah. Or they spend maybe too much time listening to their body. So there's this fine line between adaptation and process.
Yeah.
So let's just say I'm going out there, and again, I'm on a structured process, and I'm going to follow it because the guy told me to do it. And I trust him, I don't trust me, but he told me to do it, so I'm going to go do it. And it could have been absolutely the wrong thing to do. Where if you listen to your body saying, look, dude, you should really back off right now. This is not, because you start screwing up your recovery. Let's say it takes 3 days to recover instead of 1. Yeah. Because of you following this structure. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's you got to get in line with the way your body responds to the work.
Yeah, just yesterday I saw Bruce Lee in an interview talking about the combination of mechanical versus natural, and you can't have one or the other. If you're too natural, then you won't have it. If you don't focus on something mechanical, if you don't have any structure, then you're just going to be lost with that. And if you only go mechanical, then you're robotic. So it really is this combination of controlling, and for you, like what you're saying, it's a relationship with yourself to identify those things and where you're at with it, right? Yeah. But it really is that combination.
I agree with you. I think that, and I agree with him. Yeah. I think that there's, and by the way, in the book I talk about in the very beginning, making sure that you're running well. Yeah. Don't throw a lot of crap at bad form.
Yeah.
Because that's never going to pay the bills. That's just going to end up being injured.
We got to talk about form because that was, but continue. But yeah.
The point being is that first there's structure. First there's making sure that you're getting everything done that needs to get done.
Yeah.
Working on the details. And then once you own those, you don't even have to think about it anymore. Then you start to trust yourself. Yeah. And then you start paying attention to your emotion and your physiology, the way your body's responding to the work. But the details were already handled.
Yeah.
They're no longer, I mean, you can check back on them and say, something's not right.
Yeah.
And because I have people tell me that. They'll say, since I've seen you and you helped me with my running mechanics, I've now, when I get out there and I'm running, that little niggling injury that used to be the case, it starts to rear its ugly head, and I know immediately what the problem is, and then I just start paying attention to the way I should be moving, and the problem goes away.
Yeah.
So that would be structure, but it's also perception, because you're paying attention to the structure, you're paying attention to the way you're moving.
We talked about my PR. It was 2 years after meeting you, or 3 years, that I was able to get a PR not PR. So when I met you, I was a 242 guy. And you're reworking my mechanics. Took me down to sub 240, sub 230, and I got to play with all of that and get down to my ultimate PR, 223. And a huge part of that was my mechanics. And then fast forward after that. And it's funny because when we came back up here 126 days ago, and you're like, you got to get the mechanics figured out. It's funny to hear because I've also, as a coach, been coaching athletes with mechanics. But in the last, I would say, month, I've really got it to a new place. And I think it's just an interesting thing with mechanics is like, we call it skill. And the skill of anything is never perfected. You never get to this place with skill where you're like, okay, now I'm there. It's like, if you release yourself from skill, then you're like, essentially you're just, you're really getting yourself to not being your best. And so I'm always like on this pursuit of how do I get a little bit more out? And I've had a huge unlock in the last month. And it's from the work we did.
It's funny because we had spent a lot of time apart.
Yeah.
But you're out there, so I would see video of you running, whatever, and I'd get pissed. I'm like, you know what? I know we can get a lot more out. He's like, okay, I got a 223, and I'm thinking, there's more there. Yeah. There's more there. And I know that there, and I'm looking at the way you're moving, I said, we got to get that cadence down a bit. Your cadence is too hot.
Right.
And historically, 19, 18 miles deep, that's when the wheels start falling off the bus.
Yeah.
Is because you're just blowing up. And we start spending time on trying to open up the stride, slow it down a little bit, get a little bit more force production out of the ground, travel faster at less expense. And those are the kind of things that, in concert with the way we're approaching the training, is going to make a big difference.
And for me, like when I go into the faster stuff now, and we've been talking about hitting these like 5-minute type of paces, my primary thought, besides really getting my full foot to contact and drive through my posterior chain, is to slow the cadence down. Like it's like if I can just, because it's like my tendency is to, go up, but the intensity goes up, the cadence goes up. So if I can just control the cadence and I can slow it down while the output of power is increasing, I notice my heart rate can stabilize. I can extend the duration.
It's massive.
I calm down. It's
massive.
Huge.
So anyway, someone you and I both know, I tested him actually in and around about the same time I tested you. And his VO2 score was very close to yours.
Wow.
And you blew at the time about an 85 VO2 score.
Yeah.
Right? And he was in the 80s. And was recognized as a very successful runner. And I told him, I said, dude, you should run a marathon. And he hadn't run a marathon yet. He said, I can't run that far. He goes, it just destroys me. I said, okay, whatever. I said, but I think you're underachieving. As a matter of fact, I think the other copy of the Laura running that I lost went to him.
And I have the other one.
Because I wanted to show him, the VO2 scores of some of the greatest athletes in running in the world.
Yeah.
Historically. And, you guys are in the stratosphere. You're way, way up there at the top of it. And I'm thinking, don't tell me you're running a 240 and your VO2 score is 85.
Yeah.
Because something's not right. And it's not your physicality. It's not about your cardio capacity.
Yeah.
So what's left?
Yep.
You got wheel wobble. Something's wrong with the way you're moving. And we need to correct that.
And it's hard to digest that. It's like
a
pride thing for people.
It was for me. And it still is for him.
Yeah.
And he's still not going to do what he needed to do. And this is opportunity lost for him.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to I almost did it. I almost
dropped the name.
But I'm not going to do it. But I've seen it happen, and this happens commonly with guys that are very fit, and they're very difficult to get through sometimes.
Yeah.
They're looking at this old man and go, what could you possibly know? And I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm just telling you, this is my day job. This is what I do. And,
Well, you've always said it's not what I know, it's what I can teach you.
Yeah.
And it's like, from when you showed me how I actually run compared to what I thought I ran like, and got my attention, I mean, I spent, I'd say, 3 years as an apprentice under what you were doing and watching and reading everything that you were doing. And I mean, that one of your true abilities is to translate the information to people, you know, and it's like, I think that's what I'm...
And I thought that was my deficit.
Well, yeah, it takes all your time, you know.
Yeah, no, you know, it's not even that. It's like, this is completely, you know, out of context, but I watch some of these guys. I've been paying attention to some of these scholars that are doing these TEDx talks. And I'm thinking, man, these guys can just throw down. They get up there and they're just dropping bombs left and right. I'm like, wow. I said, I couldn't do that. I said, if they put me up on that stage, I'd shit the bed. Like right out of the gate. I could not pull that off, you know.
I beg to differ on that one.
I don't know. Maybe they should call me.
Yeah, once you get rolling, man, it's like you have so much experience with it. I mean, and 25 years of lab experience, and then just applying training to the people that you've tested. You know.
It's been a long ride. And and I'll tell you what. You know, let me blow my horn since I just shit on myself. Okay?
Yeah.
The thing that I think was really helpful for me is being diverse in the type of clientele that I work with. Right?
Yeah.
So when you speak to a running coach, his entire being has been about running.
Yeah.
Right? And same thing with a football coach, a basketball coach. All these guys, they're locked into the thing they do. And I never did that. I've opened myself up to all kinds of opportunities.
Yeah.
Because scenarios would come to me, and I look at it like a Rubik's Cube. Okay, cool. How can I get this thing to... so I've worked with professional boxers, world champion boxers. I worked with professional hockey players. I did assessments on all of the LA Kings for 3 years running. 52 hockey players in a given day, where I've done clinical assessments on their anaerobic and aerobic power. I've done this with soccer players, MMA fighters, baseball, basketball, football.
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of different athletes, and so to me, it's the human condition. It's the culmination of challenges that these people put themselves through, and I learn from each and every one of those things.
Yeah.
And then when I look at a runner, I don't look at a runner. I look at an athlete.
Yeah.
And I look at some of the pitfalls and circumstances they might be facing that might be adjusted or corrected. And through my influences doing whatever I do, it's helped me a lot. And I think just being sheltered into one community of people is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't even think that if somebody was watching this right now and they thought, well, you know what I'll do now? I'm going to go make sure I go pay attention to these guys. Yeah. I didn't do it on purpose.
Right.
They just came in. They used to come in my door. Hi, my name is so and so. Oh, by the way, I'm the featherweight champion of the world. Oh, really? Doing what? Like, you don't even know who the guy was, right?
Yeah.
And we set about making changes and helping them get to a better place. So it just was kismet. It wasn't anything that I intended to do.
Yeah.
And
that I mean, you notice it in the run flow stuff, because you could see that it's like there's more. You're looking at the human, right? And it's the funny thing is to experience as a runner, which I don't like being put in a box. I like to be like a multi-sport athlete, but I definitely have a knack for marathoning. But as the runner who's gone way down the running side of training, run flow has created this way more versatile version of myself, where like I feel like I'm 20 years old again when I was a surfer. Like I can really do a lot more stuff, and all that's really been changed. It's not like I've added a bunch of other types of modalities. What I've really changed is the running itself. That's what's weird to me. It's because of my relationship with the way you've structured the running, just the methodology really. It's changed my body.
And we've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. Is what I didn't mention earlier was the CrossFit community.
Yeah.
Which is a complete polar opposite to endurance.
Yep.
Right. These guys are power athletes, and their functional fitness that they tax themselves for 30 to 45 minutes worth of training at these really, really high intensities. The workouts work for them. I wrote a program for CrossFit, and these guys are doing the program. The guys that took the leap of faith are getting astounding results from their efforts. They come back to me, they're reporting to me that their lifts are improving. I had one guy report to me that in 6 weeks his lift improved by 280%.
That's crazy.
In 6 weeks. the guy.
And these aren't beginners.
No,
these
no.
are like
Plus, this guy's
seasoned.
a professional. He's an exercise scientist. He goes, I don't know what the hell you did. He said, but this thing is crazy. And then he started asking me, so when's the next one? When are you going to write the next one? I'm like, I'm not a CrossFit guy. I just spun this out and here it is. And, so anyway.
Well, DIaz human performance, I mean, it's absolutely beyond just running.
Well, it has been. It has been, but, I mean, it all comes around to that. And what I've learned over the years in business was that chasing these different athletes around was a bad plan from a business perspective. What I identified was they all have to run. If you just focus on the running, they're all going to come to you because that tends to be the deficit for most.
Yeah.
And so that's been, the pinnacle of the process has been focusing very directly on running and running mechanics. Make them run better, show them what it costs them to do it.
Yeah.
And then, build from there. And that's basically been the last 15 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You are so welcome. I can't wait to buy. I might have to go out there. I might have to just go out there, stand at the finish line like this.
Put the pressure on.
Or maybe like 20 miles. Like, what do we got going here, buddy? No.
Pick it up.
Yeah, but I'm gonna get out on a limb and say I'm pretty confident that you're gonna see a PR.
I feel confident, and I also feel like if Boston never came and they canceled the race, I would be happy to race anything, anytime, anywhere. A, but B, I feel so good as a human. I feel like it's a gift and just vitality, and that is something that most marathoners would not identify with. Like in marathon training, you don't feel vital. You feel like if the wind blows, you're gonna die. Like put me in a marathon and I'm good. Anything else, like keep me away from it.
Right. So
this is a completely different. To be confident in long distance, fast running, and to be able to do everything else you want to do in your life, that's the magic.
You just gotta trust the process. That's all you gotta do.
Yep, and read the dark side.
Training the Dark Side.
Yes.
If you don't have a copy of Training the Dark Side, just don't even speak to me ever again.
Yeah. You're done.
Yeah. I'm gonna get out on a limb and say I'm pretty confident that you're gonna see a PR.
I feel confident, and I also feel like if Boston never came and they canceled the race, I would be happy to race anything, anytime, anywhere. A, but B, I feel so good as a human. I feel like it's a gift and just vitality, and that is something that most marathoners would not identify with. Like in marathon training, you don't feel vital. You feel like if the wind blows, you're gonna die. Like put me in a marathon and I'm good. Anything else, like keep me away from it.
Right. So
this is a completely different. To be confident in long distance, fast running, and to be able to do everything else you want to do in your life, that's the magic.